had a great privilege to serve as the Minister of Education of Ontario, but I learned how to do that job by helping community groups like the parents here at St. Vincent de Paul. As a member of the opposition, as critic, we worked with parents to make sure that good neighborhood schools like St. Vincent de Paul didn't get closed as they were threatened to do under the Harris government. We had to work for weeks and actually months to persuade people, but finally we got this school to stay open. It's filled with kids. It does a tremendous job for the neighborhood, and it was a basic reminder for me about how we've got to make every school the most effective unit of education. Not what happens at Queen's Park, not what happens where the politicians are, but right here where the students learn. St. Vincent de Paul is here for the neighborhood because parents cared enough to make the effort to keep it here.
So as soon as Gerard Kennedy became Education Minister, the atmosphere in schools in Toronto improved dramatically. Teachers and administrators began to work together. Parents and students became more involved and more effective in the schools. Class sizes went down, test scores went up, and education really worked for the first time in a decade.
So I met Gerard Kennedy when Mike Harris was undermining everything that we believed in Ontario, and he has always been a fighter for people who are living on the margins, for people who believe in social services, for people who believe in a strong community. And he really turned education around in Ontario. He worked as an activist before Harris was defeated, and then once Harris was defeated and he became the minister, he had saved schools in Parkdale High Park. He'd worked with school boards, with parent groups, and then when he came into office, he built strong relationships with teacher federations, with support workers, so that we could have 4 years of peace and harmony, and we could reinvest in education. So he really got us going on a path that has improved education in Ontario immeasurably. He's worked at the provincial level, but he's worked in the community to help people who are living in poverty, whether it's on food bank issues or whether it's creating town hall situations where people can come and talk about their issues. And he always brought those voices to government. He always brought those voices from the community into government, and that's an extremely important part of his legacy. And the learning for me in working with him when I was his parliamentary assistant is that that's necessary for government to work well. You have to have community as part of what we do as government. So I'm very grateful to him personally. I'm grateful to him as a citizen of the province, and Ottawa needs Gerard. The Liberal team needs Gerard to be there, so I hope you'll support him.
When I was Minister for Education, I learned a couple of things about the needs of children. It makes so much sense for us to start in the early years. If we can unlock the potential of kids when they're 3 and 4 years old, and we can find out about their challenges, we can not only help them at the time when it's most beneficial for them, we can save money for the system. It's time to have a national child care plan, and the new Liberal government will bring forward 165,000 spaces. What that means is about a third more spaces right here in Ontario, right here in our neighborhoods in Parkdale High Park, where they're really needed, where parents are having to scramble to get care for their kids. And what they want for their children is not just care, but good early years education, and we'll bring that. In addition, we need to make sure the federal government plays its role, being supportive of our K-12 education with French language education and so on, and we would expand that, but particularly at universities and colleges, making sure that students who are eligible in terms of having the ability and the drive are also eligible in terms of having the means. So we would make student loans easier to get, we would have more grants, and we would make it easier for students to repay that. We would make an entire shift, in fact, in how students finance themselves, going to whether it's college, university, or an apprenticeship. It's time for every student to have a good outcome in mind when it comes to education, and that means post-secondary education with full involvement from the federal government.